Hey everyone, it's Tox from critshappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. We're here with another critical preview where we take a game that's about to be on Kickstarter, put it through its paces, and let you know our experiences while playing it. If this is of interest to you, you can check out more information about this project with links at the end of this video or below in the YouTube description to the Kickstarter page. As always, what you see in front of you is a beta or prototype copy, so it's not indicative of the final product if you were to back it yourself. For more information about that, definitely check out their project page directly. But what are we looking at? Well, today we're going to look at Zeppeldrome. Zeppeldrome is a puzzle screw your neighbor game of dirigible racing. Now, at its core, it is just that, a racing game. Get your dirigible from the start line to the finish line and be first across the finish line. But it's the calamity and the hilarity that ensues between that start and finish line that turns it into a puzzle screw your neighbor type game. Now, how does this all work? Well, first, let me explain one very big aspect of this game. It is completely different every single time you play it because the board is completely modular with sections. There are multiple different sections, but there are four main ones that you will put in, A, B, C, and D. You have the option of randomizing these. There's different A's, different B's, different C's, and different D's. You have the option of picking and choosing your own, or mixing that up and randomizing some and picking your own for others. So it makes the replayability very, very high. There's a lot of different options. But essentially each section is going to have its own ability or hazards that you're going to have to deal with. And that's where the puzzle piece comes in. We'll show you a little bit more of that as we dig in deeper. But for now, let's grab our brass goggles, let's grab our flight plans, and jump into the world of Zeppeldrome. So here's Zeppeldrome set up for a 4-player game. This game has a lot of chits and a lot of bits and a lot of things going on with it. But essentially, you are a dirigible on the starting line. Now, determining who is in the lead is actually quite interesting. Let's say that this was the setup of our game. The yellow player is in first place because they are furthest ahead and closest to the finish line spaces. The green player is in second place, so the higher you are, the closer to first you're going to be. The red player is in third place, and the blue player is in fourth place. Now that is very big in terms of when people play different abilities, and we'll show you a little bit about that in a second. But for starting off the game, in this case, green is technically in first, followed by yellow, blue, and red. Each player is going to be given a flight plan cover or board, as well as a flight plan marker, and we'll show you a little bit about that as well. Now, as we mentioned at the beginning, these boards are completely modular, so there's different pieces that get put in. For instance, this one is inspiration point. When I finish a movement on these spaces, these gold spaces, I get to draw cards or get more cards, which is very interesting. But if I wanted, I could flip that out and I could put in another A section, and you'll notice there's A, B, C, and D in the bottom left of these, and this section is called a bit of ballast. I would then use the corresponding tokens and put them on there as well. And each section has its own rules as to what pieces that are put on the board interact with the players, how your movement gets changed, and things like that. For example, in section B of this game, we have the slalom. The slalom requires you to move through your colored hoops. If I were to try and move through another hoop that wasn't my color, for example, if I was here as the red player and I tried to move forward a space, I would be pushed back and left in this space. However, I could move down and forward or down and forward diagonally to go through my own hoop. However, then I have to get back up here to get through my red hoop to go into the next section. And that's one of the key things about this game is its modularity. There are 3 different sections for each A, B, C, and D. You can randomize them, you can pick them, you can do all different kinds of things with them. The puzzle piece of this game comes from choosing your flight plans to get you through each of these sections. And let's talk a little bit about these cards that are going to represent your flight plans. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to draw cards, 4 cards on your turn, and they're going to have 2/3 of the card is going to be your flight plan, the top part. The bottom third is going to be abilities. The very first thing players are going to do is they're going to choose a flight plan. So let's say I'm the green player and I choose this as my flight plan. I would put that down, face down in front of me. Now let's just say that each player had also then chosen a flight plan for themselves. The remaining 3 cards stay in my hand. From this point forward, the only thing I'm worried about is going to be their abilities, and that's it. So we'll show you a little bit about how that works with each of these guys. Now, you're all going to flip over your cards at the same time to show what your flight plan is. You're then going to take your movement marker and put it on your dirigible on your card. And this is an easy way of keeping track of whose is what. I'm going to take my flight plan color and put this here, so each player is going to know which card is theirs. And then from there, we're going to start moving our cubes and playing actions. And it's really, really interesting. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to play actions. Each player, starting with the first player, is going to choose a card or choose to pass, and they're going to play a card as an action. And some things are very simple. Like this one tells me I can add 2 up and to the right movement chits before a flight plan. Now I can do that to my own, or I can do that to somebody else's. Now what that would mean is if I decided I wanted to do it to somebody else's, I would take 2 of these chits and I would put them to the left of their plan. Let's say I decide I wanted to do that to the yellow player. I would put 1 here and 1 here, showing that their flight plan has now been adjusted and has 2 up and to the right. The more important thing is that means their cube is now going to come back over here as well. The next player would go, the next player would go, and so on and so forth until players have all passed in a turn. Now yes, that means you could potentially play all of your ability cards in one turn, and that's okay because at the end of the turn, any cards left over, you can discard what you don't want, keep what you haven't played, and then draw up to 4 cards as well. And that's an interesting decision point because you have to choose, am I going to need this flight plan later, and do I want to keep it in my hand, or am I going to use this ability later and I want to keep it in my hand? Or am I not? And I'm going to chunk it and get new cards. Now, once all of the actions have been played, players are then going to take turns moving their characters or moving their dirigibles. In this case, you'll see the green player has an option. He can go up and to the right or down and to the right. Now from where he is, he can't go up and to the right because it's actually the top of the course and he would be pushed back to the position he's in. He has that choice, but if there's nowhere for him to go, he can't go there and stays there, and then would finish out his 2 movement places to the right, so he would end up finally, at the end of his turn, right here. But it's very key to note that each player moves 1 position on their flight plan at a time. And that's key because you can't go over or under a player. You bump into each other and bounce off. So let's walk through and just presume this is the way that each player would move. Let's say this player, the green player, decides to move down and to the right. Well, they're going to move down and to the right. Then the yellow player has theirs, normally starting over here, but theirs is over here because of the abilities that have been played. This player is going to move up and to the right and move forward 1. Then the blue player is going to go, and you'll notice the blue player again has an option of moving forward or moving down and to the right. He's going to decide he wants to move down and to the right and do a little bit of blocking. Now what's going to happen is he's going to move down and to the right here. The red player then goes, and the red player's options are the same as the blue player's options. There's actually the same card. So he can either move forward 1 or down and to the right 1. Well, again, he can't go down and to the right 1 because there's nothing there, and the course would push him back to the space that he's in. If he moves forward, there's another dirigible there, so he's pushed back to the space he's in. So it doesn't matter which position he goes to, he's going to stay exactly where he is and can't move forward. And that's a lot of what happens inside a Zeppeldrome, is a lot of blocking and a lot of maneuvering. We then go back. The green player would take their next move, which would move them forward 1. The yellow player would move up and to the right, but again, they can't move up and to the right, so they stay where they are and they move forward their cube on their flight plan 1. The blue player moves forward 1, so they would move forward 1. The red player finally can move forward 1, and he'll move forward 1, and so on and so forth until players are done with their movements from their flight plans. Now, one of the interesting things, let's talk about the yellow player here. Theirs is now a down movement, or a forward movement, excuse me. But after here, they have the down, and then they have clear arrows, and they have solid arrows. The difference between clear arrows and solid arrows Solid arrows, you move, you just move your cube forward and you're good to go. If you decide that you want to take one of the clear arrow paths, you must have a card in hand that you can then discard as payment for taking that optional route. There's not many of them, but they can become very good, especially in a game like this where a lot of chaos ensues. Options are a really good thing. And that is how Zeppeldrome plays out. Every play would move all their movement on their flight plan. They would then discard these cards. They would get their flight plan boards back. They would, again, keep any cards in hand that they have that they want, discard any they don't, and then draw back up to 4 and continue on down the raceway, trying to be the first player to get to the finish line first. But again, there's going to be tons of obstacles along the way between the boards that you use in play, the options that you have to use as replay or changing the game up. There's just a lot of different options inside of Zeppeldrome that will give you different instances of fun, different instances of hilarity, different instances of, oh, I can't believe you just blocked me with that move. There's going to be a lot of things happening and a lot of reaction modes throughout the game, because you'll have a strategy laid out. Somebody will then also play a card that will mess with that strategy, and you have to adjust from that. So that's Zeppeldrome. Now, most people who know me know that I am a huge fan of steampunk. However, this is the first time in my mind that I can remember somebody combining comedy and hilarity and calamity with steampunk in a game. It pulls itself off, but in the vein more of like Hot Rod Creeps is the easiest way I can describe how we've enjoyed this game. Hot Rod Creeps is playing a card, randomly going around this racetrack, and a lot of comedy ensuing while you're doing it. The same thing happens inside of Zeppeldrome. There is a lot of screwing your neighbor in this game. They did not like sugarcoat anything with the puzzle screw your neighbor tagline for this. There are a lot of times where, depending on the cards you have in your hand, you're just not able to get around things, and you're trying to find ways to maneuver and figure it out. But it's just much easier for you to say, you know what, while I may not be able to push myself further ahead, neither are you. Therefore, I'm going to push you back or push you down or push you into an obstacle or find a way to make sure that while I am sucking, you're going to suck more. And that's really what ends up happening inside of this a lot. Now, it makes it fun. It's enjoyable, but it's just good to know that going in. If you have a game group that does not like games where people will mess with other people, this is not a game to look at. This is definitely a game where you're going to be pushing your opponents around, maneuvering your opponents into harm's way, and making sure that you are not in harm's way. Now, I do like the modular boards. I really enjoyed that you could mix these up and make it a little bit easier or harder depending on how you wanted to do it. The other thing I really liked is that you could make it a short or long game by just adding only a couple of sections and shortening the length of the raceway. That made it really fun, and it also made it very easy to teach younger players. When we were dealing with more experienced gamers who understood racing games really well, it was really easy to pick up and get moving. For younger players, trying to remember what each of the boards did and all the different things that were happening brought about a little bit of confusion, but being able to shorten it and only include maybe 1, 2, or 3 boards instead of having to go for all 4 at once was a really nice way to help ease new players or younger players into it, which made it really enjoyable. I do like the fact that the flight plans are very easy to follow, and being able to manipulate those ahead of or after them is also very easy to follow. And I did also like the fact that the cards are not always obvious what to play. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of cards that when you look at them, you're like, oh my goodness, this is going to be so beneficial for me. But then the more you look at it, you realize, wait a minute, this may help me get forward ahead, but I can really mess with somebody if I do this and move them in this specific direction. So while there's cards that you look at initially that are going to be very beneficial to you or very harmful to others, with the right strategic plans, you can shift that up, which made for the gameplay to be very differentiated every time we played. Now, I will say this about it. I feel that this game is very luck-driven because you only have so many cards at the beginning of each turn, you're only going to have so many abilities to play on you or your opponents, and you really are going to be limited to the amount of different flight options in your flight plan and what you can do to affect that. There can be some times where we've had some AP where people are looking at their flight plans and trying to look at what they would be able to play from an ability on themselves to manipulate those flight plans. That can take a little bit, but again, You can adjust that if you're running into problems with that with players. Just shorten the board or take out some of the obstacles, and it makes for a little bit more streamlined play. The modularity of the game is really a really big thing for me, and I really enjoyed that. So overall, that is Zeppeldrome, the puzzle Screw Your Neighbor game of dirigible racing. If you've liked this, definitely check out their project page. There's going to be links at the end of this, as well as links underneath in the YouTube description, but we would love to hear from you as well. Feel free to leave your comments below in the YouTube channel. Of course, you can chime in on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus by searching Crits Happen, or at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope you enjoy all of your calamity and high-speed racing inside of Zeppeldrome. Thanks so much for watching. Keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.